The Spike Week community has submitted a ton of great questions. First ever Spike Week Best Ball Mailbag episode. We're going to dive into some player takes, 2023 strategy, some macro best ball strategy, and maybe some off the wall food, beverage, life takes. We're getting into all of that here on the first ever Spike Week Best Ball Mailbag. Let's do it.
I wanted the extended cut of the intro, and I just wanted to jam out for like 2 minutes. That's what I was looking for, but maybe next time.
As would be the case with just about any Spike Week stream, my dogs are jamming out. Apparently, they heard the music, and we just went for a walk, and they're supposed to be tired. We've done 2 walks. It's hot as hell outside, and they're like running laps. My wife's over here yelling at them to shut up. But a pretty fitting intro to an episode where we're just going to kind of talk about some different things, random new things, a little bit of real life, but of course, tons of best ball. A lot
they're just asking you if you want to play. They're like, it's questions. I have questions. It's, do you want to play, Dad?
They have lots of questions every time we go, as you guys can see here behind me. But I'll let as they calm down, I'll let Rob kind of intro us.
Yeah, so we are going to do a mailbag. As Erik said, we're going to be talking about football. People want to know about backfields. People want to know about quarterbacks. People want to know what kind of snacks we like on Sundays, our top 5. So maybe we'll get into a little bit of that. What is a normal day working at Spike Week? That is another question that was asked. So we're going to get into what our normal day is, which is, as you heard the dogs' chaos, it is actually complete chaos for us all day. Believe it or not, we don't just sit on our ass here doing nothing. We sit on our ass and do a lot of things. So that's what goes on at Spike Week. But we'll get into all of it today.
We will definitely get into all that. Thank you guys for joining. But we have a lot of questions, and even though I have an earthquake going on behind me, let's just start to dive right in. If you are not in the Discord, these are the kinds of things, submitting these kinds of questions all happens in the Discord. There's a link in the description for you to join. It's 100% free. I will also plug really quickly before we get in. We're getting into the heart of best ball season, and the Spike Week premium tools are starting to become a must. I've seen tons of other people say it, so it's not just me, but I also feel like, particularly when I'm drafting, on the phone doesn't feel as good anymore after using our draft hacker overlays for so many drafts and it helping guide my decision making. I feel a little misguided, a little naked while I'm doing drafts when I don't have the draft hacker. And then today I started I'm at a little smidge of a pause, if you will, on drafting. Not anything crazy. I'm kind of always drafting, but I went pretty hard at the 2 poodles and the puppy 2. Not anything like super. I haven't maxed the puppy 2 or anything, but I fired a bunch of teams.
Even a sicko?
And I was, yeah, right, exactly. But I was kind of experimenting with some different structures and strategies and everything because we have a long summer ahead, and using our draft IQ tool to kind of analyze those teams and the portfolio of teams and look at my structures in a specific tournament, my player exposures in a specific tournament, my player combinations, right? So people are sick of me talking about, say, Damian Harris, but he's my highest exposed player, and diving in a tournament, say, oh, you drafted 50% Damian Harris in this tournament. Well, what do those Damian Harris teams look like? And then, okay, what do my Damian Harris teams with AJ Brown look like? Do I have any of those? And so we're definitely getting to the point where I think the Spike Week tools are valuable at all times. But right now, as we really approach kind of the heart of best ball season, both the draft hacker overlays and draft IQ are they're driving a ton of what I do. And I think a lot of people do that are subscribed. So again, also there's a link to that in the Discord. Blur. Yes, we are live.
You can easily find your dead Stephon Diggs teams as well. So
congratulations, you got your Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen stacks. I hope you put Deontay Hardy on that team or something at the end.
Yeah, that's an interesting situation to monitor. I mean, I don't think it's going to be anything, but It is Stephon Diggs, and he's got a personality. So
He seems to be an interesting fella. I will
I
leave it
like
about
Stephon
at
Diggs
that.
a lot.
I love a good personality. Obviously can't speak to exactly how good these human beings are, but Stephon Diggs is certainly an interesting personality and doesn't make football less interesting. let's just say
true.
that. But like I said, lots of questions. So I'm not going to read them all in order. I am going to kind of bounce around because I want to kind of bounce between, like some very serious best ball talk and maybe some more fun, casual, lighthearted talk. So I'm going to kind of bounce around, but I am going to try to hit every single one of the questions that you guys put into the live streams and media channel in Discord. If you're here watching and you want to pop something in there, pop it in the Discord. It'll be a little bit easier for me to manage it if it's all in there. But we'll kind of just start going. I'll answer. Rob and I will both try to answer pretty much every question, and we'll kind of go back and forth on who is answering first. The first one, we'll start with a little bit of a more lighthearted one. I don't know if you were a Pokemon guy back in the day, but there was actually a pretty funny conversation this morning that somehow broke out. Apparently, best ball sickos are also Pokemon and Digimon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And I didn't follow all of that stuff, but Kyle Pitts, our buddy B. Kurt, asked about Kyle Pitts, and he has been clearly a hot button player in best ball for multiple years now, and frankly, probably still is again this year. But we got to lead in with something a little bit more fun. I don't know if you have a Pokemon expertise, but B. Kurt asks, who is Kyle Pitts' Pokemon doppelganger? And so I'll answer it first, okay, unless you have something locked and loaded.
Oh, I didn't know. I knew there was a Pokemon question. I didn't know what it was. But as I heard this one, there was one name that came to mind. But let's hear yours. Let's see if we have the same idea here.
So I tried not to read and think too much about all of them because I wanted it to be kind of on the spot as we did this. But this was definitely one I absolutely went back and Googled and looked at a list of all the Pokemon. And to me, the Pokemon that stuck out is Charmander. And so for people familiar with Pokemon, they evolve right to higher levels, and eventually a Charmander can become a Charizard. And Kyle Pitts has been a Charmander that everyone keeps hoping is going to evolve into this, flame-throwing dragon cheat code tight end, right? He's a wide receiver that we get to draft as a tight end. That's a fucking Charizard, right? That is a unstoppable creature, fire-breathing creature that dominates the best ball landscape. The problem is Kyle Pitts has now entering his third season, not evolved into shit. He is still a Charmander that is not helping you win any fights in best ball. You're probably losing to all the other more evolved Pokemon. So I thought he was a Charmander.
That's a good answer. The one that popped to my mind is he's a Snorlax because he needs to wake the hell up. What are you doing, Kyle Pitts? For all the reasons you just said, we need you to start scoring points. Wake up on the field. Start doing something. Producing the way you're supposed to produce. You're a Snorlax, Kyle Pitts. I hope you hear this.
Yeah, exactly. Please, Kyle Pitts, like and subscribe to the video and channel. Next question, and I'll let you answer this one first. Is from KRS0123. Says, and you don't have to specifically. This would take us probably the rest of the episode if we really detailed it out. But he asked, what does the perfect BBM4 team look like round by round for you? So just kind of if you had your druthers and you could set out to draft a BBM team in the way you want, right? Structurally, maybe a player here or there that fits. How would your perfect BBM4 team come together?
Well, it would be some value falling in the second. So I'd like to start with a wide receiver, probably Jamar Chase would be for me. Justin Jefferson's right there as well. I mean, either or. I just like Jamar Chase's upside in a single game slightly more. I like his week 17 correlation. So give me Chase, give me, we'll say Devonta Smith, Patrick Mahomes, and we'll build on from there. We'll keep hitting wide receiver. We'll probably get an elite tight end and maybe mix in some value at running back in that J.K. Dobbins, Alexander Madison until he jumps all the way up range and play it out that way, Probably structurally, it would be a 2 for BBM, probably a 2-7-7-2 build, to be perfectly honest.
That's pretty much what I was going to say. I think there's I think last year it very easily for me probably would have been like 2772, 2682, elite quarterback, elite tight end, handful of superstar wide receivers. I do think this year is kind of tough to define like what is perfection, because of we've beat this horse to death with the wide receiver pricing and some of the running backs that you can get. Then the 2-3 turn, even like a 5th round J.K. Dobbins feels kind of crazy to me. I've been drafting him a ton, but I think generally speaking, the elite tight ends are something that has become a lot more of a priority for me, when I thought coming into the season that may not actually be true, because we've discussed a lot how bad tight end is as a whole. But the more you think about it, with tight end being so bad, there only being a handful of guys that can truly separate right in any given week. And I really like those guys. And in 18 round drafts, what they can do for your structure is so important. If you want to dip into those elite quarterbacks, even though they're very expensive, they allow you to do that. I know I don't want to get locked out of wide receiver. So if I really want the elite tight end and I might want the elite quarterback, and I only want to take 2 of those positions, somebody has to get kicked down the road a little bit, and that's kind of running back. And so I'm very flexible about where I dip my toes into running back. And that's not to say you can't draft, I really love Tony Pollard. I love Nick Chubb. But I think if I'm drafting the perfect team, it might actually forego those guys to get another superstar wide receiver, so I can have Andrews or Kittle or Pitts or someone like that. And then I'm going to dip into Dobbins, right? I really like Cam Akers. We used to like Madison. I think he's probably going to get priced out of my budget, if you will. But then the Damian Harris's and Antonio Gibson's, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You guys get it. So I think we're pretty much on the same page with that one.
I've been changing my tune on elite tight end, and I think there's some questions later that might address that. But I've been coming around to a different mindset for that particular position.
Here's another one that is not necessarily in terms of like how do you draft your perfect team, but how do you address this certain position and certain backfields that are very, very murky for this 2023 draft season. Straight Outta asks, basically, when there's a triple backfield is what he would call it. He used the Miami Dolphins and the Chicago Bears as the 2 examples, which, of course, unless you've been living under a rock, that the Dolphins have Devin Achane and Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson. And quite frankly, we don't know how the heck that's going to break out. Is one of them going to be the one and the other guys are backups? Is it a total 3-way split? Chicago being the other one with Khalil Herbert, Donta Foreman, and Roshan Johnson. We don't really know what's going on there. So he basically asks, how are you kind of playing into those backfields? He says, I've been just taking the cheapest guy a lot, which of course I think makes sense, but that doesn't necessarily mean just because he's the cheapest, he's actually the best bet of them all. So how are you playing into these kind of like triple-headed backfields?
So I usually pick 2 of the 3 that I'm comfortable drafting, and I generally fade the third. Sometimes it's a case-by-case basis. But I like the guy that I think they want to establish. So, like, for example, the Bears, my mindset is they want to really know what they have in Khalil Herbert. He's going to get every opportunity to be not a featured back, not a bell cow back, but to be, if there's 60 to 70% of touches going to one guy in Chicago, I believe they're going to try to make that guy Khalil Herbert, right? It just feels like they need to know what they have out of him. And then what's the upside case? It's Roshan Johnson, right? So like he's cheaper. I can grab Roshan Johnson. Do I hate Donta Foreman? No. Is he on the team for a reason? Probably. But the higher upside guy is, in my opinion, Roshan Johnson. So then we go over to Miami, and who are the 2 that I want? I think that the coaching staff likes Jeff Wilson Jr. more than they like Raheem Mostert to do what they do. I think we kind of saw that last year a little bit. Not that Mostert had a bad year or anything like that. And I think Achane is a guy that they are very excited to have. So it's Wilson, it's Achane for me. And unfortunately, I'm just not touching Mostert as much because of that. And I've heard conflicting arguments for this too. I totally understand. Like people think that Achane parallels more to Jeff Wilson. So it gives Mostert a better chance. So it's how you define the backfield. I don't like throwing darts at all 3. I like picking 2 of the 3 personally, but I know everybody's different, but that's how I play these backfields.
That's super interesting, actually. I don't think I've heard any. A lot of the times people will do like what Straight Outta says and say, well, if I don't know, I want to spend the least on it. And I think that that's also totally reasonable, just as what you said, kind of eliminating the guy I think is, for whatever reason, right, could be the lowest probability bet in terms of getting the most work, could be the lowest upside guy out of all three of them, et cetera, and picking one and throwing them to the side and just saying, look, if it's that guy, so be it. I lose on that backfield, but that's okay, because you don't always, it's not a guarantee that you lose, right? Like, guys get hurt, things change over the course of the season. You could be wrong week 1 and right in week 17, and things can play out in funny ways. I am a little bit more of kind of spray and pray, if you will, but I do prefer to try to identify, kind of like what you said, who is the truly the highest upside bet. What do we win when we win, right? If this guy does kind of take over this backfield, what does that look like? So we kind of know that with Raheem Mostert, and it's fine. It's fine. There's like, I want that guy at his cost, right? If we have last year's Raheem Mostert when he was getting the majority of the work. But I think Devin Achane, of course, is much more expensive, but was probably brought in because Mostert isn't quite what McDaniel, Mostert, old fastest player in the NFL. Mostert was like this exciting guy in this McDaniel / Shanahan offense. And I think my kind of bet is that Mostert is a bigger version of Achane, but like not as good or as explosive anymore as Achane. So I view him kind of as the highest upside guy. And then I view Jeff Wilson as kind of he's the cheapest. Plus I think that he's the guy that kind of does what the other two don't. And so I will lean into those two a little bit more, but I'll also sprinkle in some Mostert because I'm willing to admit, like, I don't know. I don't think anyone knows. And I think that can be, I'm not saying you specifically, but I think if someone comes in and they say, I know this is not Raheem Mostert, I think you're fooling yourself. You're telling yourself a story that's not really true. The Bears are even more difficult. Like, I mean, I don't have the slightest idea. Like, not if you said week 1, Donta Foreman gets the first carry, would I be surprised? Not even in the least, and gets 20 carries and Roshan doesn't play. I would not be surprised. And so I'm leaning a little bit more into Herbert, as you mentioned, because I think he's the highest upside bet, and Foreman because he's the cheapest. And I don't think he's really much different than Roshan. But again, Roshan is kind of like the Mostert to me in that group, where I'm not going to take 0 of that guy. I just might end up underweight on him. But I think, to your original point, these are the kind of situations that, like, there is no right answer. Like, and frankly, if anyone tells you they think they have the right answer, I think that they're full of shit. And so it's like, you can listen to us or listen to many other smart people, but it's also up to you to take in the information maybe from other people, or do your own research and identify a strategy for you. I think it goes way much, like, people will try to identify the player take, and I think that's a little bit of a fool's errand. If you take a step back and try to figure it out like Rob did, Rob says, I only got 150 bullets in this tournament. I got to draw a line in the sand somewhere. I can't draft every single player if I'm trying to win, right? So he's like, I'm going to eliminate one of them. That could be the right strategy for you. Or you could be like me, you kind of identify those two, but then you sprinkle in the other one. Maybe that's right for you. You have to identify what is right for you. And I think that's the fun part about best ball, is we all get to identify that strategy. So I'm glad you asked this question, because I think these situations are like, they're impossible. Not just hard, they're like absolutely impossible, because the team doesn't know. The Bears don't know right now. Like, Roshan could just be the best guy in camp. We don't know. The Bears don't know. The Bears don't know. So I think, but that's the important thing to understand, is like, if no one knows, including the team, don't pretend like you also know, but figure out a strategy that works for you.
Yeah. And I just like to concentrate my bets a little more. Right. So, like, and I understand that I'm different in that aspect than other people. You look at my exposures, they're way different than a lot of other people that stream. Some of them get a little out of line, some don't. It's just, where do you want to place your bets sometimes? And for me, it's concentrating it. And I understand there's different ways to do it.
Next question. I'm trying to make sure I get these up on so that everybody can see them. It's a little bit easier. From Kid Prosper, he asks, and I'll answer this one first. What percentage of your drafts are early middle, and late, meaning at time of the off season of the summer. So
Okay.
early being yeah. I actually don't know what my percentage of early draft slots versus it. Just like everyone, it sure as shit feels like I get the 108 every draft.
Yeah.
Every fucking time.
Every fucking Spike Week draft has been like 108 or worse.
God, I would prefer just give me the 112 so I don't feel this pressure of like look, I'm at the turn, I'm just going to take whoever the hell I want. You keep giving me the 108 and I'm like, okay, if I want to get different, I got to pass on AJ Brown, and do I reach for I hate it. Just give me the top 5, dude. I just want all top 5 picks. That's all I want, but I never get them. Gonna end up getting buried by the only 4 like truly elite wide receivers this year, or Travis Kelce. But in terms of, he's asking, how are you structuring, your portfolio of how many were you draft? Let's call now still early, but here probably here in a week or two, the transitions to the middle, and then late being, during the preseason and leading up into week 1. And for me, actually, have thought about this a lot, and my tune has changed a good amount, but it's probably not for the reasons people think. So I have been actually a proponent of what a lot of people have probably heard as the barbell strategy, that I even kind of wrote about a couple of different years ago, where you draft, let's call it, for easy math, 50% of your teams very early, and then 50% of your teams very late, because there are, while tons of added risk by drafting super early, there's tons of upside into drafting super early, getting crazy ADP values, getting lucky, getting the Cam Akers, Darrell Henderson situation, getting this current Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison situation, et cetera, et cetera. And you can build some teams that you will just never be able to get that level of upside later in drafts. But then late, we have an information advantage. And a lot of times we have a skill advantage. The casuals come in. There's no badges in your underdog rooms. The DraftKings guys are taking Russell Gage in the second round. It's crazy. The difference is that when we first initially thought about this barbell idea, there was one tournament, Best Ball Mania. That was it. So you're strategizing 100% around this one tournament, and it was open the whole summer and all of that. Now we have poodles that fill in 36 hours. We have puppies that fill in a couple of weeks or less. We have such a different blend of things that I'm kind of drafting my portfolio just straight through the entire summer. And also because I'm a human. We only have so much time.
Because we have to.
Yeah. If you and we'll get to the question of whoever asked about real life and how do we have time to do everything. But that's it. I can't just take multiple weeks off of drafting, because I'm never going to get the amount of drafts I want in. But if I had infinite time, I would do, let's call it 30, 20, 50 or something like that. If it were totally up to me, I'd kind of backweight it, but it would be fairly evenly spaced out. But in BBM specifically, my strategy might be a little different than just my whole, right? If I'm going to draft 1,000 teams this summer, the 1,000 teams might be split up evenly, but BBM might be different, than the puppies, etc.
Yeah, that's fair. I think for us too, like I was just saying, we have to be drafting constantly because we're talking about this almost every day. We're researching it every day. So I can't be a fraud in the sense that I'm telling you what to do in best ball and then not drafting teams. You know what I mean? I would just feel like such a freaking fraud if I was doing that. And to each their own. If there are people that do that, then whatever. That's your bag, man. Do what you want to do. But I need to see what's going on. I need to be in the draft. So I'm drafting throughout the year. But I think I would still be drafting throughout the year because the NFL has been evolving in the way that teams are constructed lately. We have a lot of trades throughout the year now. We have guys getting released in the middle of the year after the draft. Look at DeAndre Hopkins. We don't know what's going on with some of these guys that are holding out, like Saquon Barkley, Austin Eckler. I mean, they're probably staying on the team, but that's not 100%. So that's changing your ADP and the teams that you can construct throughout the year. So a team that you can draft on, June 13th in 2023 might help give you some sort of winning construction versus a team that you can draft in the middle of August because you were able to get specific value on a certain player that fell, right? The Madison thing or whatever, like the
and player
post-June term
combos that
splits.
even if you don't get like major value, right? There's just
Yep.
there's only pockets of time where certain players end up lining up, right? Someone moves up, someone moves down,
Right.
and different things things just shift over the summer, right? We've already seen it. Look at the Madison thing, as you said. So it's a perfect point.
Yeah. So that's so I think even without doing shows and stuff, I'd still be drafting. Now, would I like to backload some of it? Yeah, I think your percentages were perfect, but yeah, man. For otherwise, I'm just drafting throughout the year, man. We have to. It's just it is what it is.
I do think, like I said, my percentages have probably changed even from last year to this year because this whole space has just fucking exploded. And some people were mentioning it in the Discord earlier today. They were posting like some DK draft boards, and they're saying, like, look at what some of these guys are doing. Like what somebody posted, they were drafting against someone who took Grant Calcaterra in the 5th round. And like random things like that you see on DraftKings. But the point being, if that's happening on DraftKings in June, imagine what the late August DraftKings are going to look like when everybody starts piling in. And so just the evolution of the industry has slightly tweaked that. But another thing for each person to decide, right? There is no, if you want to wait, draft 100% of your teams in August, dude, go for it. The competition's easier then, and you have more information, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't think that there's a right or wrong answer. Next question. This is a good one. Where do these players land? All the most notable free agents: DeAndre Hopkins, Ezekiel Elliott, Kareem Hunt, Leonard Fournette, and Dalvin Cook. And he kind of adds, where do you think they land, and like where would they benefit the most? Just kind of a general assessment of each player.
Well, the benefit the most right now would be DeAndre Hopkins going to Buffalo with everything that's going on there, right? I think I have a really, really bad feeling that Hopkins is coming here to New England. And I don't understand it because I know he hated Bill O'Brien at one point, but it could be a benefit to him for already knowing the offense and they were successful together. All the normal talking points. I don't want it personally, but I have a weird freaking feeling he's coming to New England. Zeke, I don't know, man. Zeke feels like a Charger to me. Zeke feels like he is going to is exactly what they're looking for to lighten Eckler's load, which is some of these like short yardage carries, these end zone dives. Kareem Hunt, I don't think is going to be on a team. The more and more I think about this, I've been thinking about these running backs a lot lately, and I don't think he's going to be on a team. Fournette, we might get really upset, and he might end up in Cleveland. I just think they like having
don't say
two
that.
backs that they like. I think one of them might end up in Cleveland, so I'll say Fournette's going to Cleveland. And Dalvin Cook actually feels like how there's that dark horse team that comes out and grabs guys sometimes that you heard nothing about. Feels like he might go to the Cowboys. That feels like a Jerry Jones. That feels like a Jerry Jones pick. I hate it. Trust me, my rosters hate it too. But Dalvin Cook to the Cowboys feels very Jerry Jones to me. So
that would hurt. That would and also it would really hurt. Like if all those things happened, we just nuked all of the early running backs, like besides Christian McCaffrey, literally. So it would be really interesting to see. It'd be I guess it'd probably be net good for me, but I would have a lot of teams that I would hate now for Pollard, Chubb, Eckler, etc. But it would be funny to see how the market would react if that happened. If all these free agent veterans end up on the running backs who look really good right now, Chubb, Pollard, could be Jacobs, right? If Jacobs hasn't signed his tag, Saquon hasn't signed his tag, could happen to them. It could happen to Ramondre. They just let James Robinson go. Maybe they say, James Robinson wasn't the guy, but we do want a veteran. Next thing you know, Lenny is back, is back
he
there.
Feels like a Patriot too.
Yeah. There's just, I think this is the biggest, these, I'm not saying anything anybody doesn't know, but these are like the bombshells that are left to shake up all of this entire summer of best ball drafting. Some of them may not even happen. They may happen, like you said, Hunt may not sign. Multiple of these guys may not sign, and they may wait for an injury in camp or in season. They could wait and be like, but I mean, look at Latavius Murray last year gets cut, and then all the Broncos backs get hurt and or traded, and he's just like, okay, I'll go sign and be the lead back for the Broncos. Like, stuff like that happens. So these guys could wait that out. I don't really think any of these guys are in the search in for, looking for a big money besides Nuke. I'm talking about the running backs specifically, but there's a lot of situations that look really, really good for running backs right now. And we got a lot of veteran backs that are going to get a job at some point. And it could easily be on those. I agree. Zeke Chargers for sure. For me, Hunt is the one I honest to God have no idea. I like the Dalvin to the Cowboys call. I was going to throw another dark horse that so everybody kept talking about the DeAndre Hopkins to the Chiefs thing. And obviously that can make sense theoretically, but they don't have any money. But if they were to just like free up a couple of bucks and say, like, we get to camp and they're like, McKinnon's getting kind of old, we don't like CEH anymore. If they just said, Dalvin, we'll clear up what about $1 million or $2 million for you or whatever. And they say Dalvin is the one guy that's still good out of this whole group. Relatively speaking, he's not a star, but I think like a really good team might, even in a situation where they have backs that we don't think that they need one, could swoop in and say, we didn't think that we didn't think that we were going to look for a running back, but we also didn't know that Dalvin Cook was just going to be available for $1 million or something like that. So, Lenny is definitely the one that's going to land somewhere that's going to kill somebody, because he's going to steal like passing down work and goal line work. Whereas Zeke, I think, is just going to steal like some really low value touches, whereas Lenny might steal high value touches. My take on Nuke was Patriots, or he does go to the Titans. The Titans feel like that team that everyone else in the entire planet sees like, dude, your team is not good. Just let's build for next year, right? Maybe they could get in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes or the Drake May sweepstakes or the Marvin Harrison Jr. sweepstakes, but Vrabel doesn't have it in him to like punt off a season, and Nuke is not going to get the money he wants anywhere else. And they just say, I don't know, Tannehill, Derrick Henry, DeAndre Hopkins, Treylon Burks, maybe we can win. And they go after him. I just have this weird feeling that the Titans do it, but I think it's probably going to be one of the less desirable teams for Nuke. So RIP to everybody that started drafting him in the third round or whatever.
Yeah, it's going to be brutal. And some of these running backs correlate to my Rashad Penny point, right? Like, if I think Rashad Penny's getting cut and people are like, well, he's just going to sign elsewhere. Like, do you see who's available? I mean, like, do you think teams are taking Rashad Penny over these guys? Like, James Robinson's probably dust now, because like, I wouldn't sign Robinson over these other guys, right? So
if the Patriots cut him because they said like fitness, and he's just his injury, like he just has never recovered from his injury, like his career's over, like it's just over done for James Robinson.
Done. It's unfortunate, but it's done.
Yeah, it was a great story his rookie season. I mean, shout out to him, but it's how it goes. This is a good one. I should have had it typed up, but Roci ROCI4 says, what are your expectations and or hopes for like usable weeks, spike weeks, just general contribution to your best ball team and best ball lineup from your late round guys? And does it vary by position? And I'll let you go first.
Well, we were actually having this conversation last night, right? Like me and B Kurt were while we were drafting, and the player, and God, I hate having to bring him up, but we were talking about like some of the late round wide receivers. So like MVS came up, he's 14th, 15th round guy. And everyone's like, I'm never drafting MVS again, blah, 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 blah. It's like he's a 14th round pick, right? 13th, 14th, 15th round pick. The expectations for me on guys that from there on, I mean, it varies by position, especially if it's quarterback or tight end. But for a running back or a wide receiver, theoretically, I'm just looking for like 2 weeks. Give me 2 or 3 weeks, one of them being like some sort of spike week, right? That's what I'm looking for from these guys. Because if I drafted a wide receiver heavy team, let's say I started Justin Jefferson, I took T. Higgins, right? And then maybe even I did Devonta Smith. I need those guys producing. Like those, I put so much capital in these guys. They need to produce. They need to be on my squad 75% of the time, 70% of the time, something like that. Right. So I'm just looking for some of these late round guys to rotate in and out amongst these other guys that I took towards the top. So like two times during the year, maybe three, one spike week. Hell, maybe it's the KJ Osborne situation where it's, I think he had like 2 or 3 times that he hit your lineup last year. One of them was week 15.
A monster week 5. Like he carried some of my teams through in the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, so you didn't draft KJ Osborne last year expecting him to hit your lineup 50% of the time, right? Like who did? Nobody. And he was a 14th round pick last year. So when people are sitting there like, oh, I'm not doing this again, it's like, why? He's free. He's free and you need 2 weeks out of him. And hell, you might not even need 2 weeks out of him. You might need 1 week out of him. So, so running backs, wide receivers, I mean, running backs can be a little bit different because you're looking for contingent upside value for them to replace, especially if you're doing a 0 RB team. Quarterbacks could be a little bit different. You're looking for like maybe 4 or 5 weeks, especially if you go an elite quarterback, and then maybe like a Sam Howell, like, you know, the weeks that one of your elite quarterbacks is down, you're hoping that they can pick it up a little bit. Tight end, you're trying to, if you're going late round tight end, you're just trying to mix all these guys in and out. So it's like a 33% thing. So it's just understanding what you're drafting them for and why you're drafting them. Some guys you're drafting with the hopes that they could be an everyday starter, but generally these guys, you're looking at them to hopefully get you 2 to 3 usable weeks, in my opinion, from rounds, 14 on for sure.
Totally agree. And I do think, as you said, and as the question was framed, it's like actually wildly different by position. I think wide receiver is a lot more of, we saw it last year with Pat's Tyquan Thornton. It's like, dude, just give me that guy who spikes at the right time. Pat only used Tyquan Thornton score 1 time. And guess what? It won him $2 million. It won him $2 million. Herzig 2 years ago, or 3 years ago. KJ Hamler only used the score 1 time. He had 2 catches for like 90 yards and 2 touchdowns or something like that. But it got him into the finals, and that's how he got Alvin Kamara into. He was the only Alvin Kamara team, scores 14 touchdowns in week 17, and the rest is history. Wide receiver is, I do want, like KJ Osborne was on a good team, right? With potential to score a bunch of points. That some of those things are important. I don't just want like the Chris Hoke, the wind sprinters. Jalen Guyton would be the example of, like, even if you had a Charger stack like last year or whatever, like, what is this? Like, even when this guy's on the field, there's absolutely no paths to production. So there is some form of like, I want this guy to be good or on a good offense or something. But running back is 100% like, what do I get if he hits? Like, you could, like, so I take some, say, Gus Edwards or a player like that later. But like, I think back to like the JD McKissicks and the what does James White do for this team? It was like, those guys were kind of just flawed picks really in general, because you can get the elite contingent, right? You can get Rashad Pennies, who, when Chris Carson goes down, are top 5 running backs in fantasy back there. Now, is it clear always? No, it's not. We still don't know who Madison's backup is, or who Cam Akers' backup is, or Joe Mixon's backup. But the payoff on those guys is so huge that I want to have, like, what happens in this tiny percentage of the time that it hits, I want it to win me this whole tournament. And then quarterback is, I think, where it's maybe a little bit easiest. People, and I think a lot of people will disagree with this, but I think people take at quarterback the wrong archetypes of quarterback, guys who, even if they hit, give you nothing back there, because they feel that player is, like, air quotes, safe, right? So the Jimmy Garoppolo, I know, and I don't think people think Jimmy's safe anymore, but the Jimmy Garoppolos of the world, and some of these guys who don't run, maybe aren't in good offenses, aren't, like, Jimmy G played for the 49ers for a long time, and he was never good for fantasy. The dude is on, like, one of the best offenses in the NFL and never helps you in fantasy ever. But he, like, has a job, so people feel better about that. And so, like, now Mac Jones is that kind of a guy this year, but he just seems he's like, if I'm going to take a guy like that, I'm going to take the young guy who's kind of been decent for fantasy before, but I would rather take that. Like, give me the Howells, give me the Desmond Ritters, give me the guy. Like, do they suck? Maybe. Could they not help this team at all? Yeah, but Jimmy G doesn't help this team at all, even when he plays. Like, there's no scenario in which Jimmy G helps you. I'd rather swing a little bit on if you say I don't want to take that risk on that guy, then just don't draft late round quarterbacks, and that's fine. That's up to you.
Well, that would depend on your structure, right? Like, not to cut you off, but it depends on how you're building your team. Because I think, like, Mac Jones, for example, is perfect for a late round quarterback. Like, I think that is actually the best build with Mac Jones, because you can kind of take your shot on Sam Howell. You can be like, all right, I'm doing late round quarterback. I can do Kenny Pickett. I can do Sam Howell. I can do Mac Jones. And it's like kind of a solid 3 QBs, like in terms of like production they should get you week in and week out. Now, I'm doing Mac Jones with some of my elite QBs, but let's be honest. When I do a Jalen Hurts and I add Mac Jones to that team as my second quarterback, realistically, what does Mac Jones do for this team? He fills in the bye week and maybe
gains
offers
a few points here or there. Yep.
Right. So, like, am I doing it still? Yeah, because you kind of especially on DraftKings when you have 20 rounds, it's like
you have to sometimes.
Yeah, you're just like, whatevs. But to your point, yeah, Howell specifically has been a guy that I've been drafting with the elite quarterbacks because of what you're saying.
Or if you don't like Howell, Purdy is back there, or if you prefer Trey Lance, I think I prefer Brock Purdy, which is really funny to say now after the last couple of years. But there's a 49ers quarterback going in the 190s. Take that dude. And like, okay, if Purdy's not healthy, so be it. Like, I agree. I like Kenny Pickett. Maybe you want to make that case for Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray, we've been drafting in the top 6 rounds for multiple years. And yes, trust me, I understand all the flaws, but like, I don't know if Kyler could be back week 1, Kyler could be back week 6. Like, that seems fine for me as a late round quarterback. So again, just very positionally dependent. This is a good one for a spike week show. And unsurprisingly, from our good friend Sacrilegious asks, what's your perfect best ball tool to create the biggest edge? And he caveats it with it saying, like, if you had anything you could do, but you don't like know the future, right? This isn't Back to the Future. You don't have the sports almanac to where you know what the results are going to be, and you can't violate the terms of service, right? So we can't build a bot that just drafts our perfect teams for us. What would, this tool that you could create be? And clearly this is something that I have thought about, because obviously that's what we do here is build best ball tools. But mine is essentially kind of that bot to draft the perfect team for you. But of course, within the terms of service of one of these best ball sites, it can't physically draft for you. But the big thing I think that everybody would really need from a drafting perspective is, and why things like rankings are so flawed, and like even just like general player takes are so flawed, is because every pick you make in a draft, theoretically, your rankings should change. And who the best pick is dependent upon not just what your rankings are and who is available, but who is on your team. And so I would want to have a tool that says, I drafted Jamar Chase in the first round, and then I drafted Jalen Waddle in the second round, and then I drafted Ramondre Stevenson in the third round. Now, when I get to the fourth round, we get to all those wide receivers. And quite frankly, right now, I'm just maybe spreading out my exposures or trying to set up a stack for later or whatever. But I don't really know what the optimal pick is based on many different things. I would want something that said, while I'm drafting, I can say, okay, took this guy, took this guy. And it's going to adjust my rankings for me and kind of guide me to the optimal pick along the way. We, of course, have the overlays, but those are not guiding, they're not changing your rankings. They're not changing XYZ. They are just saying, okay, here's what your exposure looks like, right? Here's your player combinations. Here's playoff matchups and correlations, which is all really helpful, but it's not, it's not going in and saying, well, now actually you should take J.K. Dobbins over DJ Moore, right? It's not going in and saying that. And so I think that's, and there's going to be people out there that build these kind of things. And frankly, they're going to violate the terms of service probably. But it would be that essentially, where something that's helping me, the draft hacker on steroids. The draft hacker is helping to guide you, but it's not adjusting for player recommendations based on who you have already drafted and tweaking those things. And that's ultimately what it would be, because you could build in your sims and your projections and all that kind of stuff to tell you kind of which player is optimal at each pick.
So I don't think it's against the terms and conditions that if I'm going to make a pick and whatever I build doesn't like that pick, it electroshocks me. So I think that's my perfect tool, where because whatever underdog in DraftKings, you don't have to feel my kinks that I have over here. It's fine. So yeah, I want to get electric shocked if I'm about to make the wrong pick so that I make the correct pick. How about that?
I'm a big fan of that one. I could use that one, especially after you have a couple cocktails or something.
Yeah.
You get really galaxy brain. Here's a little bit more fun one that just got posted in the Discord, so I thought I would throw it up there. Do you think Mr. Best Ball Mania 3 champion Pat Kerrane can win it all again this year?
Best Ball Mania or the Royal Rumble?
Ooh, good question. Both.
He has a shot at winning Best Ball Mania. He has no shot in hell at winning the Royal Rumble again. I will not allow it. I will not allow that travesty to happen on these airwaves again. Pat Kerrane thinking he can come over here, steal our championship belt, bring it to New York City. Never again will Pat Kerrane win the Royal Rumble championship. Best Ball Mania, he might win $3 million. But that championship belt is coming home to Spike Week this year.
Okay. Yeah, the next one up, we're on some more. We've given lots of serious takes. Our boy Jay Jinx in the chat asks, this was maybe sorry to everyone else, you all had good questions, but this was a very, very good question. And I tried not to, like I told Rob, I think before the show, I tried not to think too much about it because I didn't want to spoil the show. But this one required a little bit of preparation because you do kind of have to think it through. But he says, rank your top 5 Sunday game day foods and the go-to beverage of choice that you pair with them. I think you just went, so I will go first.
Okay.
I don't have them in a particular order, but I do believe I have a number one, and so the one that definitely is above all else is wings. Wings are the ultimate, game day food. You're having people over, you just get wings. It's kind of a finger food, but it's kind of not, and that will lead into some of my other stuff. Beyond wings, there's a lot of other amazing foods. I mean, who doesn't love, sometimes you'll order pizza, who doesn't love ribs and those kinds of things, but that stuff can get a little messy. But for whatever reason, the wing messiness is acceptable at group gatherings and on game days, but I don't feel comfortable eating ribs. And I don't know that they're probably less messy than wings, but for whatever reason, wings are the holy grail of the get together. And then after that, it kind of becomes like a finger food off of a bunch of different little kind of casual finger foods. More how I view it as things that I can munch on or go back and get a second helping, in the second quarter. Game's still going on. It's not going to distract from my viewing experience. I'm not making a mess all over myself. And so the first one, this is not a finger food necessarily, but for fall, it gets to be a little chilly. And you make some chili. It's nice and cold outside. You get some nice hot bowl of chili, spruce it up with whatever toppings you prefer on there. And then, like I said, some finger foods. I don't know what it is. I have a problem. If you put at a group gathering, some chips and dip out, I don't think it matters what kind of dip it is. I could frankly not like it very much, but I will be back scooping in that motherfucker every few minutes, chips constantly, French onion dip, buffalo chicken dip, taco dip, all of that different stuff.
Taco dip's the move.
So good. And then another finger food that is a little bit messy, but you can make it not too messy, that I'm still a child about, is nachos. Let me spruce up some nachos on game day 100%. And then I have to throw in the St. Louis miracle, and that is toasted ravioli. If you've never been to St. Louis, if you don't know what the fuck a toasted ravioli is, I will just say, come out to our disgusting Midwest city and try out the toasted ravioli because it's phenomenal.
What's your drink?
Oh, so I just feel like it has to be a beer on game days because it's very different. Like, you're not going to make it through the games if you're pounding whiskeys or whatever your favorite liquor of choice is. Although I am more of a whiskey guy now at my age, as opposed to a bunch of beer. Very advanced age. But I will throw out. I like to try out like various, like wherever I'm watching the game at, whatever's like a local brew for that like kind of specific location. Like you and I went to the Super Bowl, not to the Super Bowl, but we were at a Super Bowl party in Nashville. I want to try out the local Nashville or Tennessee beers that I would never get a chance to. So I also do that here at home. There's tons. St. Louis is a big microbrew place. I'm always trying out different beers. So it's a beer, but I like to kind of mix and match as opposed to like I don't have one set drink.
Yeah, well, I unfortunately cannot drink beer, so that is a thing for me. Not like a problem or anything. It's I physically cannot drink beer. I get sick. Like my body cannot handle hops for some reason. So no beer for me. So I am a vodka guy. So it's like a vodka lemonade, something like that. Something along those lines. If we're doing alcoholic, but I am really just kind of a boring water guy. For foods, a lot of the same. Wings is number one. I think wings, because there's so many variations, right? Teriyaki wings, you can go gold fever, you can go buffalo. That's all great. Mozzarella sticks is another one for me. The taco dip.
Who doesn't love fried cheese? Who the hell doesn't love fried cheese? I mean,
it's amazing.
Jesus. Yeah.
We'll go taco dip as well. Nachos is another one. And I'm going to throw a big variable because I do this like twice a year because I can't do it every week, right? Like I don't want to do that every single week. Occasionally I get a bunch of different sushis and I bring them. So I'm a sushi guy. So on game day, do some sushi, some teriyaki and watch the games.
If we were playing Family Feud, the how many answers of each one, you would have been the one sushi.
Yeah,
everybody would have guessed. Everybody would have probably guessed the other one, the one sushi. I do apologize. I've been trying to keep firing the questions into StreamYard here, but I want to hit some of these.
Speaking of firing, I'm firing B. Kurt because of this comment.
Yeah. What is wrong with you? Who does like?
It was.
Do you watch football?
No, this was a joke, Eric. He spelt it foul like the bird.
Yeah,
he's getting fired for the dad joke. All right, which one did you want to ask?
I'm gonna hit some of the comments because there's been a shitload of comments and I've been ignoring everybody. So I apologize.
Bone in or chicken nuggets? It's bone in. I'm not anti chicken tenders, but bone in is better for football.
Totally agree. There's something about the manliness of the bone being on the inside of it that it makes the experience a little bit better. You did mention this one. That one was very good on the Kareem Hunt. Cobra Kai is still on the Trey Lance train. Never been cheaper. If I get a 0, so be it. Well, it hasn't been cheaper yet, but when he's no longer in the NFL next year, I promise you he will be cheaper. Lion asked if Nuke goes to Tennessee, does a Tennessee QB become worth drafting and stacking? If so, which one? Yes, and Ryan Tannehill for me.
Yeah. I think that tells you their intentions at that point.
Yes, 100%. It's time to I'm not saying you have to draft Derrick Henry because of this, but let's say your take was, oh my God, the Titans are an unserious team. It's going to be Will Levis and Tyjae Spears at the end of the season. I think this would dictate that they're going to try to play this season out to win. Spinach and artichoke dip is definitely fair. And I totally agree, dude. Any form, any form of cheese. Like I mentioned the chips and dip and stuff put out a plate of cheese and crackers and or charcuterie board or any of that kind of stuff. I won't walk away. I'm that guy that's full before the meal at the family get-togethers all the time because everybody puts out all the snacks. All right. Next question.
I'm going to hit this one from David in the chat real
Perfect.
quick. He
Perfect.
says, I'm a small stakes best ball player and really enjoy these streams. If I had to pick 1 month to utilize premium sub, which month would you suggest? July or August? Ooh, that's a good question.
Very good.
Well, I guess that depends on your draft volume, because the best part of the tool is like being able to dissect your teams and see your percentages and everything as you're drafting your team. So theoretically it's August, right? But if you're going to do the majority of your drafting in July, it's actually July.
Correct.
So it depends when you're going to be doing the majority of your drafts, because you want to be able to see what teams you're building, what percentages you're using, and stuff like that.
Other thing that we do is, and if you've already signed up for drafters, then this is null and void, but you can get a free month of access to the tool there's a link in the description as well. Sign up for drafters using promo code SPIKE or using our link, and you can get a free month to test out the tool. That's kind of what people ask for, like free trials and stuff. And we don't do that, but we do if you deposit somewhere, you can get free access, and then you could use it in both July and August, right? You like it in July with your free month, and then just spend your $40 on August. But I agree. I think it's mostly just when you are going to draft the most volume. So that's definitely going to be different for each person. There was another really good question that I'm trying to find here. There's way too many questions in the Discord for me to keep up with. Okay, I'll type it in here in just a second. But Moxie, our guy Moxie asks, who are the 3 quarterbacks each of you plan on fading the most on underdog at their current cost?
Okay, I can give you 2, and I have to kind of think it. Oh, actually, I kind of know the other one, and one of them I'm really double thinking, but right now it's Josh Allen. I think I've talked about that before already, that I'm roughly fading Josh Allen for the most part. It's been Justin Herbert quite a bit lately. Is the one I'm second guessing right now. I'm debating on. I'm starting to walk back Justin Herbert a little bit. And the other one is kind of unintentional because it's just based on my builds, but I know I'm not drafting a lot of Anthony Richardson. So
that's a good one.
Those are the 3 that I have not been drafting quite frequently. Some are on purpose, Josh Allen. Some are kind of unintentional, and it's Anthony Richardson. And Herbert is like this weird, I need to establish what I really want to do with him.
Herbert is the same for me, who I have maybe only taken a couple times, but it wasn't like a planned fade. It's just kind of how things have worked out. And so to your point, he would be the answer of who I have kind of been fading, but unintentionally. And so it's actually one of those, like you said, I want to go readdress and say, is this intentional? This is what happened. This is what is another great thing about the tools is you can go back and see not just the exposure. You can see like, okay, I'm not taking him. Who the fuck am I got to be overweight some other people in this range. Was that intentional? Mine is, there's really just one. Anthony Richardson has been a guy, but he is continuing to fall. And there's a little pocket, kind of where Daniel Jones and Geno and some of those, Tua, Dak, some of those guys go. And he's gotten to that tier now where I actually kind of like hate everybody that goes there. You get past that Bateman, Zay Flowers tier of wide receiver, and you're not quite to the Penny, Damian Harris, et cetera, not even quite to P. Ryan or Dylan or whoever. And so there's that little pocket of quarterbacks I'm really starting to like, and he's about to get to that spot. So I think I may end up taking him some, but Richardson is a good one. I really just have one guy that I'm just like completely and utterly outright fading, and it's Aaron Rodgers. I don't really have anything negative to say about him as like a football player, and I am excited for the Jets with him there, but it's because of what he does for the skill players. It's not because of his fantasy production. He has, outside of the 1 year he threw 50 fucking touchdowns, he really hasn't been a very good fantasy quarterback. Certainly at his age, he's not running anymore. He plays a really slow offense. He doesn't take a lot of risks. And they're going to run the ball quite a bit. And
sleeps for 4 days in the dark.
Exactly.
Dark house.
So I don't really have 3. So I'm kind of cheating, but I have not drafted Aaron Rodgers, and I don't intend on draft. Things happen, you auto pick or whatever, but I don't intend on taking any Aaron Rodgers. All right. I'm trying not to run us too long because I think Rob's still got if you'd correct me if you don't have some ghost stuff to do after this, but we got a handful more if we can hit in the next 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah, we can do 5 or 10 minutes. And we also, if we can get out of here, I can record for 5 minutes for our next Bulldog.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. All right.
So-
We got a couple more questions. If we did not hit your question here, this won't be the last one of these that we do, and we'll make sure to double back and hit these. I promise. This was basically a question in the form of a statement, but can you guys discuss your least used macro strategy and why it is your least used, and then kind of, argue against yourself if you should give that more of a shot. My least used macro strategy has undoubtedly been it actually not like a robust running back, but it has been what we would call a dual running back start, meaning two running backs in the first 3 or 4 rounds. Because if I'm gonna do that, I end up would rather leaning into the robust type of start and like just give me Christian McCaffrey and Tony Pollard and Ramondre Stevenson, and then like I'm done at running back. I feel like I'm sort of middling the more optimal structures, optimal being the more extreme: 0 running back, hero running back, and robust running back. And when I take 2 of them, I generally feel like I said I'm kind of middling the optimal strategies. So it's actually kind of a, let's say Christian McCaffrey, Tony Pollard, DK Metcalf start. Like I don't like that start personally, but the counter and the arguing against myself would be, down to that, say, Ramondre spot in the draft, those are a lot of really appealing elite running backs. And if you start with 2 of them, you can still get a kind of an anchor wide receiver. You start Justin Jefferson and then double tap running back at that turn right there. But I just been leaning into other strategies there, but I don't think it's not viable. It's kind of like the Rob point about the triple headed backfields. I only got so many bullets and there's so many different things I'm trying to do that it's the one I'm going to do the least.
Mine real quick. We hit on it a little bit earlier. I haven't been doing as much elite tight end as I want to do. And that's something that I'm looking at changing. And it's pretty easy. The reasoning is simple. We've seen it the last 2 years. Mark Andrews 2 years ago, you needed him. We didn't need him. I mean, obviously, you could have got to the finals like you did without him. But look at his advance rate in those rounds to get you to that point. He was like 70% or something like that. And then George Kittle did it last year for 2 straight rounds and actually brought you to the finals. So the elite tight ends just have like this upside that the bottom tiers just don't even come close to matching. I think the quarterbacks are like that on a little bit lesser of a scale. I'm kind of anti the take that quarterbacks are overly flat, especially depending on the scoring system. But for tight ends, especially, dude, Pitts, Kittle, Kelsey, any of these dudes go off and you're buried. You're absolutely buried. And then you do need the KJ Hamler 2 touchdown game. You're the only guy that has them situation in order to advance. So I think I need to start adjusting my elite tight end stance.
I like it. 2 more, and they are more on the kind of personal fun / work side of things. You mentioned this kind of at the top. Josh asks, what does a typical day look like for Erik and Rob? How do you get anything done on top of Discord banter all day? And do you breathe? And I can answer this one first. And I'll actually start with the Discord part of it. For me personally, I'm extremely active in the Discord. And we actually had a funny conversation this morning where a particular individual probably doesn't like that I'm as active as I am in the Discord. But I believe strongly in being active in there and being a part and talking with you guys. And like from day one, since we started this whole thing, I'm in there every day. If you want to ask me a question, if you just want to get my advice, if you want to tell me I'm a fucking idiot for one of my takes, I'm here to listen to it all. I think it's the most beneficial. I've been a part of many online communities across multiple, mostly fantasy related, but a lot of the times it's just people talking past each other. And maybe the people that started it aren't even in there. And a lot of times it doesn't work that well. And so I do kind of take a pride in being in the Discord. But to your point, that does take up time. It definitely does take up time. And the typical, I wouldn't even say that I have a typical day. Every day can be kind of crazy. I'm trying my best. I'm not always very good at this, pulling myself away from the screens and getting out. And, I definitely, am out with the dogs, taking the dogs for a walk a lot. But just trying to have that work-life balance during this summer is difficult because Rob kind of mentioned it before. I mean, all day is content, customer support, random shit that pops up. Right, obviously writing articles, recording streams, editing stuff, doing SEO, doing just like, it's kind of, you have to wear a lot of hats. And so there is really no typical day. There's a never ending to-do list, and I try to be as productive as I can, but also making it a priority to be in the Discord and be available, because I don't think it would be very fair to me to say, oh, subscribe to me and come join my community, and then I'm never fucking there for you to like ever talk with, or you never get to hear my opinions other than when I'm like speaking to you through this internet machine. But we've talked about this a little bit. To wrap, I'm not trying to, complain about my job. I have like the best job in the world, but for certain parts of the season, May to September, it is kind of crazy because you can never get everything done, because there's like 4 months of best ball season, and then it's kind of much tamer. And so it can be a little bit difficult to get everything done and still like keep your work-life balance. That's actually been my biggest struggle. So I breathe somewhat, to answer your question.
You forgot to add in getting yelled at by me at least 2 times a day because I
think
need
you
something.
Yelled at me. I think you yelled at me, but literally right before we got on here.
Yeah. Yep. And I wish I was more active in the Discord, to be completely honest. But if you guys want like an inside snapshot of what I'm doing every day, and we've brought people in. Shout out to Trev, Silas, B. Kurt, and Jesse to help. And even with that help, there is a lot to do. So it's all the Spike Week stuff. I take care of, if I'm not creating it, I'm posting it, I'm setting it up. My hands are on everything we do in some form or fashion. Right. I also do some stuff for Roto Grinders, scores and odds at sometimes. I'm doing stuff for everybody. I'm helping create their shorts and all that stuff, and producing shows. You might see me pop up occasionally when I'm producing a baseball stream or an MMA stream or something like that. I also have Hometown Ghost Stories, and we get thrown curveballs as well. So for instance, we had plans this week, right? We talked to Chris Jericho last week, and Chris Jericho was like, can we record something on Jack the Ripper next Wednesday? So everything had to get thrown out the door, and we're doing a whole Jack the Ripper thing. That's not a complaint. These aren't complaints. It's just, we're constantly on the go. We're constantly doing stuff. And I've had some funny videos that I wanted to make that I haven't gotten a chance to make yet. Like I just haven't had time because I have to get all these other stuff done for Spike Week. Plus we're doing the streams. Plus we're doing this on quality control on other stuff. And it's nonstop. It's all day, every day. And by the way, I used to work 60 hours a week doing all this too. I'm on like a little bit of a hiatus just for some mental health reasons from that for a few months. But even taking that time off, I'm still doing stuff like all day, every day, just because I enjoy it. It does help mentally because I enjoy it. But I would love to be more active in the Discord. It's just right now, if you guys don't see me in there, it's nothing personal. I'm probably editing a video or working on something for Spike Week. So if you tag me though, I do respond. I do respond to tags and emails
and I try to keep my notifications off. That's why Rob has to bug me multiple times, because when I can be very distracted very easily, and then like I'll be writing an article and then someone pings me, and the next thing you know, I'm off of it for multiple hours. The only other thing to add to this, and then we'll get to our final question, was the other thing that you kind of mentioned before is we also are trying to draft hundreds or thousands of best ball teams. It's like, again, these are not complaints. This is like the epitome of first world problems. I love all of this, but to that point, from May to September is like, it is kind of crazy. And also, that's
Rob B is my secretary.
Yeah. The first person to have his burner have the same name as them. Very, very tricky move there. But yeah, that's why, like you said, we're trying to constantly draft and stuff too, and do the rankings and do the content and do all of that. So it's fun, but it is a little kind of crazier, I think, than some people might expect. Last one, very, very similarly related, and you kind of hit on it already. What is your full-time job, and how does it translate into your Spike Week role and best ball? It was kind of, I put these two together because they're kind of the same question, 1A and 1B. So my full-time job is basically this. I'm employed. Spike Week is a product of a company called Better Collective. So I work for Better Collective. I started as an employee, many years ago now, for Roto Grinders. For anybody that plays DFS, Better Collective bought Roto Grinders. We are now part of this massive, the biggest affiliate gaming company in the United States and in the world. We own Action Network, we own Vegas Insider, we own Scores and Odds. I was the project manager for Scores and Odds back in the day, and a project manager for Roto Grinders. And then I kind of pitched this idea on a best ball site, and they just said, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Go do it. And I was like, oh shit, I don't know what I just got myself into. So now I run this, but I still do Roto Grinders work. If you play NFL DFS, every Sunday morning at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, I host a DFS show during the NFL season, and then I do stuff for Scores and Odds for sports betting. So to your point, my full-time job is basically Spike Week, but I do still do some other stuff within the fantasy and sports betting space at our company. So it all translates together. But it's not 100% best ball for me. I know Rob's a little bit different.
Yeah, I work in a data center doing stuff there, which is very boring. But the way it translates is when I don't win Best Ball Mania or the $10 DK Millie, I'm going in. I'm setting fire to all the servers, and nobody's getting paid. So.
Oh, that was the question. We're gonna wrap on this one because it was your perfect one. If you win Best Ball Mania 4, that was the final question. I apologize to whoever asked. I do actually want to. I think it was FYC Blur. Yeah, FYC Blur. If you win Best Ball Mania 4, what are you doing?
Probably moving, but in terms, to be perfectly honest, but in terms of what I'm like doing for like work and stuff, I'm still gonna talk about football, and I'm still gonna talk about ghosts. To be perfectly honest, I enjoy it thoroughly. It will allow me more flexibility to do both of those. And if you guys really want to know, for some reason, I don't think anyone cares, but I want to start a ghost tour company. So that's something I want to do. And I'm starting to look into how to do that locally and maybe expand upon it.
I actually didn't even know that. And that is amazing. I would still do stuff that we do here, but all of the stuff that takes up my time, I would do shows and maybe write a little bit, but I would hire people to do all of all of the stuff that actually takes up all my time. That's not just sitting in front of my computer talking to you guys and doing the fun part. Streams are the fun and easy part. The rest of it is the kind of monotonous part. I would bring people in to do that so I could do the fun parts of best ball, and of course still draft them. I would definitely do some kind of side projects. I am very into like Rob is into ghosts. I am very into like the whole true crime documentary, kind of a similar hobby to what Rob has. If there is a true crime documentary on any streaming service, I've probably seen it. I started rewatching a couple literally today in the background while I was working. So I have some ideas of some different little like passion projects I would like to do with that. And then I am, of course, a diehard animal fan, and like my dream, I don't think 3 milli is going to get me there, but it could start down the way. Maybe I could bring some other people in, some other rich folk in. And I really like, my dream would be to just like own an animal rescue and run that every single day. So awesome. do a best ball stream in the evening and go get to hang out with and save animal lives during the day would be my that's the dream. So you guys can all let me win so that I can do some actual good as opposed to shit posting about running backs on Twitter all the time. But I know Rob's got to go. We got to go because we got to go make some picks in our Bulldog draft that we are in the middle of. Myself, Silas, Rob, and Trev about to make round 7 and 8, hopefully selection. So be on the lookout for that video. I also just want to plug that series really quick before we get out because it's awesome. We're through 6 rounds of a Bulldog. It's a $500 draft on Underdog. It's a slow draft, and we're recording like our conversation and strategy around every single pick that we make throughout the entire draft. Going to try to do a couple more high stakes series like that. But thank you guys for hanging out with us. Went a little longer than we expected, but it was actually a ton of fun. We'll try to get maybe 1 or 2 more of these in over the course of the summer, so you guys don't have to just watch us draft and watch us talk about, Sam fucking Howell for
MVS Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, exactly. But we'll be back probably tomorrow, sometime very, very soon with that next video. And of course, more streams. Thursday, Legendary Sickos is back with me and Karain. So we'll see you guys very soon. Peace.
Woo! Those were some spicy takes. Want to stay up to date with all of the other spicy takes we're going to have over here at Spike Week? Why don't you press that subscribe button below? You turn notifications on, we draft a team, boom, you know about it. We have another spicy take, boom, you know about it. You can be there. You can draft with us. You want to stay up to date? That's how you do it. All right, we'll catch you later next time here at Spike Week.